dance, and it was done in the clubs. And when you won, you knew you won because the crowd gave you your glory.
Okay.
And that's how it all started.
Word.
I've battled before Kenny, a guy named Wayne. In fact, I just remember when Andre Mizrahi first came to the Midwest to see what the Midwest was all about, and it was at this club called the Generator. I didn't know who he was, but he was up. He said, got on the runway to Vogue, and everybody was standing around, and I'm like, I know y'all not going to let them just come from the East Coast and not battle them. So I got on the runway, and I was battling Andre. At that time, it came down to one vote. And when they told me who he was, I was like, oh, my God. But it came down to one vote. I almost beat him at that time because the Andre today, he wasn't the Andre back then. Wow. He didn't have all of those skills then. He had some, but not all of them.
Wow.
And I played a few bowling games with Hector Extravaganza when he came to Chicago before as well. In fact, he came here again during the 2006 showing of How Do I Look, at the How Do I Look ball. He was here.
Yes, by Wolfgang Busch.
Yes, that's my buddy.
Amazing, amazing. And how did Kevin Ultra Omni come into play?
How did Kevin Omni who?
Kevin Ultra Omni, how did he come into play?
Oh, Kevin Omni came into play when I first met him when he first came to Chicago at an Elon ball. Because before, the House of Elon, which was started by Kenny, that house hadn't even been around that long before eventually it changed its name and became part of the Ultra Omni dynasty. And at that time, to feature Omni, Kenny had a ball at this place called Ann Sather's, because that was one of the very first places we had started having mainstream balls where people were coming to. So Kevin had came down then, and that was the very first time that I met Kevin, because he got up and he walked face, and of course he won it, and people were like, oh my God, these New York kids are just slaying us. But that was the first time I met Kevin and became familiar with the House of Omni.
Word. Real quick, I want to give a great big shout out to Father Junebug Ultra Omni. He is tuning in right now to BallsingRadio.com, which is the hottest station on the internet nation, by the way. But right now, I have icon-gentry-endromeda in the mix. And what are some of the things that were different back then between the balls and now? Before the balls back then. The ball scene back then and the ball scene now.
Well, the biggest difference was the fun aspect. That all of the fighting and the good girlfriend Judy, paneling type crap going on. It was pure, unadulterated fun, and you didn't need to have the judges panel tell you that you won. You knew you lost when you lost. I had a battle with one of the kids from the House of Fairmont. He was a father at the time, Roman. I didn't need the judges to tell me that Roman beat me up for Old Way. I knew he did. And for me, it was a privilege to be beaten by somebody that was good. Because at the time, we all were growing in our skills at doing Old Way or in our voguing. So it was all fun. It wasn't all of the fighting and all of the madness. But what it seemed as if you had a lot of the ball kids from the Midwest region trying to chase things of the rumors of life that they had heard about on the East Coast. And you would have one or two girls traveling back and forth to the East Coast, coming back, think they know everything about the ball scene. And all of that started to get in the mix. And that is what started to screw things up. Then you started having the, in order for us to be the it houses, you had a whole lot of different houses started to, collaborate with one another, but in a negative way, in which they were stifling the talent of the truly gifted kids that were coming on the runway. So kids were the panel was chopping people that shouldn't have been chopped. I mean, people that clearly looked ugly as mud were winning for face, and the most sickening is people in the building were chopped on the side, and it's like, really? That's the same stuff that's going on today. And those people that participate in it, what they don't realize is that these very same young ball kids that they are trying to impress and make it seem as if they're like up in the scene, those kids are going to grow up and eventually become the legends and the icons. And when they eventually get from under the grips of those people, because the thing that holds the young ball kids under the wings of people that do corrupt stuff like that is because they hope to continue to impress them so that one day those legends may either deem them or cite them as being, a statement or star, or those icons may eventually call them legends or legendary or icons. But what they don't realize is that you can't destroy the nature of a corrupt beast, period. Right. So either you break away from them now and do your own thing and say, to backside with them, or they stay caught up in that transition of constantly going from state to state, from balls to balls, having their talent stifled by good girlfriend Judy panels, and make them wonder, like, what did I do wrong? Honey, you did nothing wrong. You ended up walking to a ball that you didn't know nothing about, and the good girlfriend Judy's chopped everybody in the building so that only their houses can be the last two at the end. And that's why I am against houses with the most trophies at balls, because that is the stomping ground for corruption.
No.
That's why I don't like that category, because I remember back in the days when the House of Avant-Garde had still at Ann Satter's, they had a night, a black and white on the evening category, like going out for the evening category, and it was $1,000, I believe, for grand prize. You had to work for that grand prize, and if you didn't bring it, you were chopped. They didn't care who you were chopped. Okay. Nowadays, all of these houses are doing houses with the most trophies, and this one person chop you on the judges panel, you gone. But what people don't realize, those are the tools that are used by people that are trying to stifle true talent on the floor. If one person can end someone's ball career, or rain on the when they coming down the runway and they're sitting on the panel, that means there's a whole lot of talent that's not getting through. And that's why I started a campaign to implement the 2 chop rule on any judge's panel, because now it takes 2 chops to get someone off the runway floor. What that does is it sort of slows down that corruption process that had occurred for a long time.
Word. Exactly. And it's just a sad shame, what the ballroom scene has become. Of course, things do change, and if the wrong people get into the wrong position. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about the legendary panel and people having mother position and father positions, or even on the summit abusing the power of icon legendary status on the board?
Oh, okay. Well, as far as starting with the parents, I'll go there first. You have usually, each house is forged by either a mother or father, and then the other parent comes along. And then in some cases, just like in reality, there are one-parent families. Now, that person or those 2 people, they're special. They're special because, one, you have a group of people who you have no biological ties with that decided to come to you and elect you to be their parent in the midst of whatever dysfunction they may have come from. It is very important that that mother, that father, or both of those parents maintain their money as being parents. It's like I said earlier, you can't call yourself someone's parent if you're acting like you're their good Judy, their best friend. That means you shouldn't be smoking. You shouldn't be drinking. You shouldn't be doing none of that crap with your ballroom kids if, in fact, you are providing, playing that role as being the parent for that child. And what's happening is, I'm not talking about people that are 21 years and older who legally they can drink or do whatever they want to do. This is also happening with 14, 15, 16-year-olds who are now coming into the ball scene, and you got ballroom parents who handing out blunts to 17-year-olds. It's like, really?
Wow.
Is that what this is all about? That's the type of stuff right there that if a ballroom child is in someone's house like that, they need to figure out how to get away from those type people, because in the end, those parents are going to be their worst nightmare. I'll give you an example of something. Back in the day, one of my ball kids, he was the nicest kid on the planet. He had already suffered, a whole lot of trauma from his real family. But when he came into my house, I helped him get everything together and all that stuff. He ended up going and meeting other people within the ball community. One of the people he ended up meeting in the ball community was from another house. And lo and behold, that person stole his identity, had 5 or 6 cell phones in his name and was selling them. And because my son was living with his grandmother, and she really couldn't help him deal with the different aspects of the law and stuff, I really had to go with him to federal court to bring charges against the guy who stole his identity. And that was from someone on the ball team that he trusted, who happened to have been a parent of another house that was trying to recruit into their house.
Wow.
Ballroom parents, if they're going to be parents, that's exactly what they need to be. They need to be parents. You cannot be your ball child's friend, just like in real life. I have a 17-year-old daughter now. That, of course, that's the other reason why I had to limit a little of my downtime in the ball scene, because I had to raise her.
Yes.
17-year-old daughter. Oh, thank you. 17-year-old daughter. Now, my daughter, as she grew up, it has always been, her friends at school, they're friendly. Their parents do, stuff that her and their friends would do and stuff. And I would always tell my daughter, first of all, I'm not your friend at all. I am your parent. Don't forget that. And as long as my daughter understood that even throughout her life, even to now, all of the things that she would do amongst her friends, she would never attempt to do those things around me. Acting undisciplined, even using foul words, she would do that amongst her friends, but never around me. And I believe that for ball parents that happen to have real kids of their own, biological kids, they understand that concept more of keeping those boundaries, as opposed to some of the ballroom parents that don't have kids of their own, that actually don't understand that boundary, that you have to be the parent. You can't be the friend and be the parent and be a good Judy, smoking and doing all these other things you ain't got no business doing, since you're supposed to be the parent.
Exactly.
Now, as far as being an icon, being legends or being pioneers in the region, because I am a product of the military and I understand, the chain of command, I've always seen those different elevations within our community as an individual who's in that spot, and they're transitioning to eventually become the educators of the rest of the community. You have a whole lot of people who have become legends and they don't know anything about their regional history.